I guess it's me, right? Hey, thank you very much. Thank you for the gifts, but even beyond that, thank you for all the ways in which you've already expressed love and care to me and my family. I have felt it. And it just says to me, like when I think about entering a new group of people, right, a new congregation, like it's going to be okay, right? It is going to be okay. And I am so glad to be here today. I also want to thank Pastor Eddie and Diane, and you have led well. And I've heard it over and over that across the interim, that the truth is it wasn't just an interim that was a holding pattern, right? It was an interim that allowed us to be ready, and for this church to be ready for the moment that I stepped in today. And so thank you for all that you've done. Would you thank them again? As we heard last week, it's not that he has favorites, but maybe, right? So thank you. I was driving around town actually a couple of days ago, and I was thinking about this kind of, like for me, feels like an arranged marriage, right? And I feel like we're on our second date. The issue is we got married after the first one, right? So now we figure out how to live with one another. We figure out how to make this work, and I'm excited for that process. I can't believe actually that I'm here. When I think about July 25th, that date has been circled on the calendar for a long time, and I can't tell you how many nights I've woke up thinking about July 25th. And that I'm here, and I'm looking out, and you are all here, and I'm overwhelmed, to be honest. I'm overwhelmed to be standing in this place, but I trust that I'll be even more overwhelmed by the help of His Spirit as I lead you, not only today, but in days to come. I remember when we pulled into Kansas a week ago, and we were laying in bed the first night. I was laying in bed, and it was dark, and you're in a new place, and I was staring at the ceiling, and I just thought, oh, Lord, help me, right? And then I pulled in the parking lot last Monday. Pulled in the parking lot, and there wasn't a whole lot of people here, and I thought, I grabbed my bag, and I stepped out of the car, and I looked, and I just thought, I'm the pastor here. Lord, help me, right? I unloaded a couple boxes, I had a few extra books, and I carried them out to the dumpster. And I saw the sign that said they needed to be broken down. I was afraid there was a camera somewhere, right? So I was breaking them down. And as I was breaking them down, and I stuck those things in the trash can, that dumpster, I thought, I hope it's a long time before I need boxes again. Lord, help me, right? And then I was sitting down in a coffee shop staring at a blank computer screen on Tuesday. A place called Black Dog. Anybody been there? Yeah, I was sitting there, and I was staring at a blank document, and I thought, what do you say on your first Sunday at college church? Lord, help me. But many times over the last weeks, the Lord drew my attention to a passage of Scripture that I preached on my last Sunday in Ottawa, Illinois. The Scripture is Psalm chapter 20. If you have a Bible, you want to flip there, you can. If not, that's okay, just look at the screens. The Psalm chapter 20. David was preparing to head off to battle. We hear the urgency in his voice. We hear that he needs God to show up. And as I was reading the Psalm, I thought, man, David found himself in an overwhelming kind of circumstance. And I could almost picture it in the moment that he bowed his head and was like, Lord, help me. And I can connect with this passage. My guess is many of you, maybe even today, you find yourself located in a place where you're looking forward, maybe whispering the same kinds of words, Lord, help me. We've all been there, haven't we? And if you're not there today, give it a month or two, you will be there. I find myself right there today. What you're gonna discover as I preach to you, I tend to preach to you on what I'm hearing from the Lord myself. That as I walk with Jesus and he talks with me, really what I do is I just say, okay, Lord, now help me to figure out how to turn around and share that with others. And so that's what you're gonna get, like it or not. Remember, we're married. Let's read it together. Let's listen to this. Psalm chapter 20. It says this: in times of trouble, may the Lord answer your cry. May the name of the God of Jacob keep you safe from all harm. May he send you help from his sanctuary and strengthen you from Jerusalem. May he remember all your gifts and look favorably on your burnt offerings. May he grant your heart's desires and make all your plans succeed. May he shout for joy when we hear of your victory and raise a victory banner in the name of our God. May the Lord answer all your prayers. Now I know that the Lord rescues his anointed king. He will answer him from his holy heaven and rescue him by his great power. Now listen to this verse. Some nations boast of their chariots and horses, but we boast in the name of the Lord our God. Those nations will fall down and collapse, but we will rise up and stand firm. So give victory to our King, O Lord. Answer our cry for help. Father, I thank you for today. I thank you for this very moment as I stand in this place. I think about how many prayers have been prayed for July 25th. I think about how many prayers have been prayed for this exact moment. And I pray that I'd be overwhelmed with your Spirit's help today. That your Spirit would help me to communicate your word. That your Spirit would help that word to settle on us and that we would hear from you in a very personal way. That you would find a way to communicate to your people exactly what they need to hear today. I trust that. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, I hope we're reminded today, and even as we read that passage, right, we're reminded where our help comes from. Let's look at those first two verses again. In times of trouble, may the Lord answer your cry. May the name of the God of Jacob keep you safe from all harm. May he send you help from his sanctuary and strengthen you from Jerusalem. May he remember all your gifts and look favorably on your burnt offerings. I was thinking about the great reminders in even those first couple of verses. Those reminders that actually, they tell us what kind of posture to take when we're looking forward and we've got big things in front of us. That the posture might look like this: Lord, hear us. Lord, help us, and Lord, look favorably upon us. All those are great kinds of postures, right? The posture of prayer that says, I'm gonna keep saying, Lord, help me, right? I recognize where my help needs to come from. And Lord, I'm gonna trust that as I verbalize these prayers, you're actually gonna show up and help. But also this, that we know that in the grand scheme of things, on this day, July 25th, a new day in my life, a new day in the life of College Church, that if we're gonna see God do what we hope he does, it'll be because of his favor. It'll be because he helps that to happen, that he empowers us, that strength comes from on high, and we're gonna trust in that today. I had a new friend ask me the other day, he said this, he said, what has surprised you the most in your first week in Kansas? That's an interesting question. What has surprised me the most my first week in Kansas? And here's what I'm gonna tell you. What has surprised me the most is the excitement that I've heard in you. Over and over and over, I interact with people and you come up to me and you're like, I'm so excited, which makes me excited, right? Because it says that you're ready. You're ready to go on this journey together. In fact, I met a man at District Assembly, and I think I'd met him one other time, but he came up to me and he looked at me and he said, he told me his name. I'm not gonna embarrass him today, but he told me his name, and he just stared at me for a second. In fact, I was there with John Pickens, your new executive pastor as well. He's sitting right here, right? And as I was looking at him, and he looked and he said, I just wanna cry. And then he said, can I just give you guys a hug? And we had like a 3-person, real manly hug. But I thought to myself, like, I just sense it. I sense that you're ready, that you're excited, that you're anticipating that God's got this, that God can lead us forward, that he has great things in store for us. In fact, may that excitement become contagious for what is to come. I love verse 4 that says, may he grant your heart's desires and make all your plans succeed. Man, what a great line. May he grant our heart's desires and make our plans succeed. I want to tell you a couple things. You know, I'm committing to you. You committed to me, right? In the midst of the reading we just read. A couple things I'm committing to you, and I believe, I hope it is the foundation that 8 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that we will look back and it'll be the very foundation of what we've started today, and it's this. The first thing I commit to you is this, to love you. You may be like, what? You're gonna give me hugs every week, Pastor? What are you gonna do, right? I just wanna say it to you. First and foremost, I'm a pastor. And I just wanna love you. In fact, I'm committing, even before I know you, to love you. Why? Because the Lord has called me here to love you. And so I'm just trusting. I'm trusting, you know, when we talk about this arranged marriage piece, the reason that I can actually accept that, the reason I can trust it is because I know who put it together. And I believe that God has put us together, and so therefore, we're just gonna start with grace and the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna love you, and I hope you'll do the same for me. I'm gonna walk among you, I'm gonna engage you, I'm gonna listen to you. I wanna pastor you from the stage, I wanna pastor you in the foyer. I'm not sure I wanna pastor you on the front lawn today, it's gonna be hot, but maybe the foyer, right? I'm gonna pastor you. It's gonna take a while, and trust me, I'm not great with names, but we'll get there. And then here's the other thing I'm gonna commit to you. I'm gonna commit to do my best to love you and to lead you. I'm a pastor, number one, and I believe I'm a leader, number two. And when I say that, my heart for this church is to lead it to be a missional church. That it isn't just about us who sit in here, but there's a whole lot of people. In fact, I've been driving around Olathe. It's big, right? It just runs into the next community, the next community. There are all kinds of people that I'm assuming need to know Jesus. My guess is that you all have neighbors, you have coworkers, you have family members. And what I want this place to be is a place where you can bring them, and they're gonna feel and hear and sense the hope and the love of God. And here's what I'm gonna tell you too. Some of you are like, okay, Kevin, when you say lead me, what does that mean? I'm not telling you today. But I am gonna tell you this. I want you just to relax. It's my guess is it's been even maybe for some of you over the last month, you're like, oh, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna change? What's he gonna take away? What's he gonna start new? What's he like? What's he not like? Just relax. Just relax and get to know me, and I'm gonna get to know you, and we're gonna figure it out together. I love your church board. I'm gonna work with them, and we're gonna figure it out together, and we're gonna take one step at a time. And I think the whole key to that phrase I said was together. It's really how I wanna lead you. We're gonna set some goals, and here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna celebrate along the way. I was reading verse 5, and I thought it's so appropriate for where we find ourselves. It says this, may we shout for joy when we hear of your victory and raise a victory banner in the name of our God. There's an anticipation that victory's coming. And there's an invitation that we're gonna shout for joy when it happens. And I say this, we're gonna figure out what it means for College Church to win. We're gonna figure out what it means. What does it mean for us to win? What does it mean for us to advance the kingdom? What's it mean for us to be 3 years down the road and look back and say, oh, we did it. And we get to celebrate it out loud. In fact, I'm just gonna tell you, right? I wanna celebrate with you. I know that I'm in Chiefs country, right? I do have a baseball team. I appreciate you trying to sway me. I do have one. They're connected by an interstate, right? Oh yeah, you're like, oh no. I will say this, I was talking to a board member and I've never had this before. I was talking to him and he was sharing about when he was a boy, he watched the 1985 World Series. They played the Cardinals. Remember that? And he was telling about how great a memory that was. I was the boy on the other side of the interstate who was crying after the 1985 series, right? I thought we were like the same age. This thing played out totally different. Had that one call at first base been different, it might all been different. No. You know what I'm talking about. Here's what I know. People around here, they're crazy about the Chiefs. I'm already hearing it. I'm seeing it. I'm coming from Bears country. But let me tell you something, I wasn't a Bears fan. That was one bandwagon I did not jump on. But I'll tell you this, I don't really have a football team, so I'm kind of excited to be in Chiefs country, right? Because here's the deal, everybody wants to be a part of a winner. Are you with me? And so here's my guess, that if College Church can begin to win, if we can begin to win, then people are gonna be like, I wanna be a part of that place. Like that's what it should be, right? It becomes contagious. That it becomes where people are like, man, what church? That's the church. You know, just yesterday I received a text and it was a pastor that I know that lives not close to here, but he said, it was so encouraging. Honestly, I don't know him that well, but here's what the text said. It said, my son is committing. He's a junior at MNU and he's committing to come to College Church this year. And he's wrestling with a call to ministry. And I thought to myself, Pastor Eddie, that's gonna be our first one, right? And so I said to him, have him look me up. Hunter, if you're watching, right? Come see me. But here's what I'm gonna tell you, this church today, we all gather in as one, but I recognize, right, that we have 3 different expressions of how we do Sundays. But my hope is this, that when something great happens in that first service, we celebrate it across all 3. When something great happens in our Spanish-speaking service, we celebrate it across all 3 because we are one. At the end of the day, I'm hopeful that what God has in store for us, truth is, not that I get the credit, not that you get the credit, but that he gets the credit. Listen to this line in verse 7. Actually, verse 5. May we shout for joy when we hear of your victory. And listen to this, and raise a victory banner in the name of our God. That we would wave his flag. That it would become about him. It would become for him. That what we would be doing would be all about him. I had a conversation with a friend who, he's a pretty big deal in the Nazarene church, and I'm not gonna say his name either because he might be here today and I might embarrass him, but he told me this. I was talking to him about, I said, I want my life to matter. We all would say that, right? I know I only have so many years and I wanna make an impact. And I was working through that whole process of coming to College Church and wanting to make sure it was a fit for me. And that God was actually like in this. And one of the things he said to me was this, and I thought it was so good. And it caused me to step back and it caused me to think, and he said this, if God does something new at College Church like I believe he can do, it could bring hope to every church across the denomination. I'm gonna say that again. If God does something new at College Church like I believe he can do, it could bring hope to every church across the denomination. See, when this story gets told over and over, my hope is that there's churches all over the country that feel hope, that the same God who has orchestrated something miraculous here can orchestrate something miraculous there. We need that kind of hope in our church, don't we? And sometimes, maybe you've heard this, but a lot of times what people say is if you really want if you're gonna make a lot of changes and you wanna just you wanna lead a church missionally, go plant a church. That most of the time they're not thinking of places who have been in existence for as long as you have. But I'm confident of this, we can be that kind of church who can lead the way missionally and watch people begin to funnel into this place and see people from MNU, students begin to experience calls to ministry. And they will go out and it will just continue to have impact all over our world. College Church can continue to be that kind of place. And here's what I want, for God to get the credit. Now listen to verse 7. It's my favorite verse in the whole thing, and I've been thinking about it a lot. Is that some nations boast of their chariots and horses, but we boast in the name of the Lord our God. I love that verse. And I want to make sure we boast in the right things. That we celebrate the right things, that we brag on the right things, not our history, even though you have a tremendous history here. Not our building, even though we have so much space, I still can't find my way around the place. Not our proximity, even though we're positioned in a great place with people all around us. And not our resources, even though College Church is extremely generous and sacrificial in the giving of God to God's work. But we're going to boast in the name of the Lord our God. I was thinking back, in 2009, I became a dad, Rachel became a mom. We adopted 2 children, and you're like, they look much older than that. And they were 6 and 8 at the time. And Rachel and I had been married about 9 years. And we were so used to doing things like just Rachel and I. And life was really kind of pretty easy. It was just Rachel and I. And overnight, everything changed. Overnight. And these 2 kids showed up, right? And they spoke 100% Spanish. And so even in our house, we spoke Spanglish. Is that a word? Because that's what it was. It was Spanish and English. It was all in the present tense because we couldn't conjugate much, right? But I think about that, and everything changed. And even like sometimes when I tell that story, sitting across the dinner table with someone, they ask a lot of questions like, how did you do that? And how did this happen? And how did this work? And oftentimes what I say is like, one day at a time. Like when our family expanded and everything began to change, it happened one day at a time. When I think about College Church, and here's my prayer and here's my hope, that God is getting ready to expand our family. And it will mean some things change. I'm not saying overnight, I'm saying gradually we will work through those. But here's how we'll do it. We'll do it one day at a time. Trusting in the Lord our God. Not in horses and chariots and plans and strategies, although I love to strategize about the church. It will be because God has given favor. And it will be because he leads us and he helps us and he empowers us from on high. And then when it's all said and done, we will raise his flag and we will wave it in victory. Where do we start? See, I think for God to do something new in our church, for him to do something new in our church corporately, it starts with him doing something new in us personally. Even as we prepare to respond today, I want to give you an opportunity to participate, to reflect, to pray, celebrate communion together. I hope that you have the elements, and if you don't, I'm assuming there's some folks who can bring you some elements. Do we have that, right? Just raise your hand if you didn't get the elements when you came in, and we will get those to you. You do not have to be a member of College Church to take communion. For those of you with kids, we leave that up to you to determine if your children are ready. Communion is just one of the ways we say yes to Jesus. And I'll also just say this, as your new pastor, if you're here and you're a guest and you're just not ready, that's okay too. I respect that. And I hope you'll just keep coming around because you'll keep hearing invitations to say yes to Jesus. And here's what we're gonna do. We sang a song a little earlier It's a new song to me. Someone sent me that song earlier in the week and said, hey, you ought to listen to this. It's a great song. We're doing it this week. And so I listened to it and I reflected on the words. I listened to it as I wrote this message. And when I think about some of those words, to this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. For my life is wholly bound to his. The night is dark, but I'm not forsaken, for by my side the Savior, he will stay. I labor on in weakness and rejoicing, for in my need his power is displayed. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. All the glory evermore to him. When the race is complete, shall my lips still repeat, yet not I, but Christ through me. For God to do something great at College Church, it will be because he does something great in each of us. Do we make it less about us and more about him? That as a church, it's less about us and it's more about him. Individually, it's less about us and it's more about him. But I know, I can tell you, I know that's hard. It's hard. I'm telling you, it's hard. I stand here today as I wrestled with Jesus. I wrestled with Jesus for weeks. At one point, I sent an email and said, I'm out. I can't do it. I'm not coming. Leave me alone. But here's what I trust. I trust our God. I trust that as I do my best to listen and follow him, that he's good, that he can lead me. And I trust the same for you, that he's good and he can lead you. But maybe you would find yourself at the same place that David is. Not so much that you're going into battle, but something is before you and it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and what you need is strength and power from on high. What you need is him to show up. What we do today is we express by faith in advance, in anticipation that we believe that God can do it. And then what we say to him when we bow our heads is, God, my trust is in nothing else. It's in nothing else but you. You are what I want, and I want you magnified in my life, and I want to become less, and I want you to become more. And at the end of the day, how you work in this church, how you work in my family, how you work in my life, you will get the glory. I will wave your banner and tell everyone it was you. That's how we start today. Start with recognizing who leads this thing. And it's him. Who leads your family? It's him. Who wants to lead your life? It's him. Here's what we're gonna do. They're gonna sing this song, and you can reflect, you can pray, you can bow your head, you can stand and sing. This is your chance to respond. Maybe you'd say, I wanna come to an altar. You can bring your communion elements right up. You can come to an altar and you can pray. But I want you to have the opportunity to say yes to him. Can we do that together?